Hello and welcome to Ask Deb. So today's questions, I've got 5 questions here from 5 different parents that have written to me and asked me for their help. So let's get straight to it. So the first one comes from Anna, and Anna says, my child has a meltdown over the smallest things. How do I help them without giving in? Now, sometimes there's tantrums. So when we talk about meltdowns, let's just kind of like differentiate them because I think we call them different things for different ages with children. And so a tantrum is usually when a child is about 2 years old, 3 years old, sometimes 4. Some people can have tantrums later in life, but a tantrum is more, it comes across as they're throwing a tantrum because they want something and they can't have it, which is generally when it comes to 2 and 3 year olds because they don't really understand yet why they can't have it. And then you get a meltdown, and a meltdown is often from emotional overload. It's when there's just too much for a child to process and they don't know how to deal with it. So let's deal with the two separately. So we're going to look at tantrums. So as a 2 year old or a 3 year old, they haven't learned how to regulate themselves yet. They can't understand why they can't have something. Or sometimes it's also just because they're really tired and they're just stressed out. And with a 2 and a 3 year old, what back in the day, what people used to do is they used to punish children and put them on naughty steps or send them to their rooms or make them stand in a corner. I think there's still some people that do that. But this actually makes the situation worse because when a child is throwing a tantrum, they're feeling massive, massive emotions and they don't know what to do with it. So when you put them on a naughty step or send them off to their room or make them go and stand in a corner, you've now told them basically that there's something wrong with them and you leaving them alone to deal with those incredible, overwhelming emotions that they're feeling in their body. So something you really want to do is to stay with them when they are having that tantrum. And how you can do that is, and I know tantrums can sometimes come across as like quite violent, when children throw themselves all over the floor and they kick their feet and they thump their arms and stuff like that. So stay close by them when they're having that and just talk to them gently. And you can say things like, I can see you're so frustrated. I know this is hard for you to understand. I know you don't like hearing no. I wish I could say yes, but I can't right now for whatever reason, because you can't reason with them, right? But you can give the reasons. And when you're talking to them in this calm manner, you're saying to them, I see you, I hear you, I can see the frustration, I can understand the frustration, but it's not going to happen. So they need to know that it's okay for them to feel those feelings and that you see them and hear them and understand them. It doesn't mean that you have to give in, but for goodness sake, do not isolate them. Do not isolate your child or send them off when they're having a tantrum because those big emotions are really, really scary. So you want to help them to regulate it. So when you sit with them, sometimes they'll go, no, go away. I don't want you here. Go sit somewhere else. Sit around the corner and say, that's okay. I'm here if you need me. I'm just around the corner. And then sit it out with them. Allow them to just feel what they want to and express what they want to. And then you can say to them, when you can hear them calming down, you can say, and when you're ready for a hug or a cuddle, just come over here or let me know or call me and then do that. Because not only do they not understand what's going on, you don't understand what's going on, right? Because they can't express it to you. So it's just a matter of them being able to release those emotions and express it in a very safe environment. Now, when it comes to a meltdown, which is usually with older children, it's because they feel this, they have this emotional overwhelm. Same thing, they go to school. Now, there's a couple of ways, sorry, and I've just said go to school, but I want to come back to that. There's a couple of ways that children become emotionally overwhelmed. Now, children between the ages of, or should I say up to the ages of 7, are just sponges. There's a part of their brain that hasn't developed yet, and all they're doing is their body and their mind is just, and their brain is receiving information the whole time. They're just downloading, downloading, downloading. And so if they have started school or nursery school or preschool or whatever, they're spending the whole day with other people and their emotions. So the teacher's emotions, the other children's emotions, their own emotions of fear or abandonment or whatever it is. And sometimes when they get home, they're so tired, they're so exhausted, and they have this emotional overwhelm. And that's why sometimes they have meltdowns because they don't know how to release those emotions. So there's a few ways that you can do it. You can really just help them release it. If they want to shout and scream and cry, allow them to do that. Don't take it personally. Don't think they're being naughty. Just let them. If they don't know how to do that and they're just like whiny and whingy, find something that they can do that they like that is going to allow those emotions to release. Because remember that emotions are energy, right? So it's energy that's in the body that wants to come out. So a fun few ways that they can do it. You can ask them about their day. Maybe they get home and you can see that they're a little bit distressed or they're a little bit upset or they're a little bit emotional. So ask them about their day. And if they don't want to talk, you can say to them, did you have a bad day? Do you want to talk about it? They might say no. And you go, do you want to express it? Let's express it. Don't even wait for an answer. Just say, let's express it. Because sometimes you've got to lead, you've got to guide them. And the few ways you can do it, you can say to them, let's roar like a dinosaur, or let's roar like a lion, or something like that. And get them to just roar the day away or roar the emotions out that they've been feeling the whole day. Get them to get all of that stuff out. Another great way to do it is if you've got like these little mini rebounders or trampolines, get them to just jump on the trampoline and jump it out and tell them to imagine that they're getting all the yuckies out of their body and they're getting all those bad feelings away because you just want them to get it out. So this is what you can do with your child when they have a meltdown. Sometimes they're so exhausted that all they want to do is lie down and cry. That's also okay. Just sit with them, stroke their hair, allow them to just release. Because if you think about it, I know as an adult, and especially if you are a sensitive adult, I'm one of those hypersensitive people. So I take on people's emotions and I feel everything that goes on around me. So not only is it children that have that, but adults have that as well. And sometimes it's just awful. It feels like your energy has been just drained out of you, literally. And often we call, people who've got very heavy emotions that seem to cling to other people's emotions, we call them energy vampires because they drain your energy, right? So sometimes you can be, as an adult, you can be working and you can have a boss that's an energy vampire or a colleague, or doesn't matter. Sometimes you might even come across him in the grocery store. But there's some people that's energies are so negative that it drains your energy from you. It's just like a psychological thing. So if you think about how that affects you sometimes, where you just feel totally exhausted, totally worn out, that's what your child is going through because they haven't learned to regulate yet, and they also haven't learned how to differentiate between their own emotions and other people's emotions. Plus, sometimes at home it's nice and quiet, or they just want their peace and quiet. So another way for children to have a meltdown is just to say to them, what do you want to do? Do you just want to go sit in the room and have some quiet time? It's important to teach your children how to self-regulate, and quiet time is brilliant, right? Not a punishment. That's the difference. It's like when you send you say to your child, oh, you're so emotional and you're just full of nonsense, you send them off to their room. That seems like punishment. But when you say to your child, do you just want to go sit a little bit alone and recharge your batteries and go have a lie down, or go draw something or read a book or listen to music. Music is amazing, good music, not sad music. That's a great way to get them to just get rid of the day and then get rid of what they're feeling and then to regulate. Bathing as well. Fantastic thing. Run a bath for them. Put some bubbles in the bath. There's all these little tricks that you can find out and discuss it with your child when they're not having a meltdown, what makes them feel good, so that when they are having a meltdown, you can remind them. Because remember, they're going to forget. They're not going to remember. So if they tell you what makes them feel better, you can then remind them and say, do you feel like going to have a nice bath now? Or can I make you a cup of hot chocolate? Or whatever it is. But just allow them to be. And it's not a personal thing. It's just those massive, big emotions. Um, okay, so I hope that helped. My next parent that wrote in is David. And he says, my child never tells me what's wrong. They just say I'm fine and shut down. How can I get them to open up? Okay, so I haven't got an age here, so I'll once again give a little bit of a how-to for younger children and then maybe for teenagers. So What's also interesting is boys and girls often behave differently because girls seem to be more comfortable with their emotions and letting them out, whereas boys sometimes feel wrong for having emotions. So I don't know if you have a son or daughter. So when you do write in, just do me a favor, parents, when you write in and ask for my advice, just tell me what the age of your child is and whether they're a boy or girl, because that will help me as well, because there are some differences. So I'll make this a little bit general. So basically, children protect themselves. When they want to protect themselves, they withdraw because they feel like, oh, I don't know if my parents going to approve of this. I don't know if it's okay for me to feel this way. I don't know if they're going to judge me. I don't know if they're going to disappoint. I'm going to disappoint them. Because children are very focused on pleasing their parents. They don't want to disappoint. They don't want to create waves. They don't want to bring attention to themselves because they might be wrong. And this often happens when children haven't quite learned yet about their emotions. They haven't discovered what they are. They haven't been able to label them, express them, feel safe with them. And this happens a lot, right? Because none of us were taught how to be emotionally intelligent. That was just kind of, you just dealt with your emotions on your own. And it's only been the past 20 years or so. Well, I've been teaching emotional intelligence for 23 years. So it's about 25 years where people have started talking about emotions and how important it is to learn about emotions and to be emotionally intelligent about them. So it's very new still. And so emotions to me are like a language, right? Because they're expressing what's going on in the inner world of a person. So if your child hasn't learned yet about emotions, what they are and how to label them and how to express them, it's going to feel very foreign to them. And especially if a parent hasn't role modeled that to them, because there's very few parents that have grown up being emotionally intelligent. So we don't know how to role model it because you haven't grown up with it, right? So I don't want you to feel bad about it. I'm just stating a fact and what it has been like. So what I would start off with, first of all, is you could say, for instance, your child is little, not a teenager yet. You can say to them, I can see that you've had a bad day, or I can see that you're really upset. Do you want to talk to me about it? And then they might go, no, and they'll go and sit in their room or they'll go and sit somewhere and then just go and check in a bit later and say, listen, I also sometimes have bad days. And, sometimes it's because my boss says something and it makes me feel really angry. Or sometimes it's when mommy and I don't agree with each other. And then I feel whatever. So the way that you can start off this journey of helping your children to understand emotions is by using yourself as an example, because often children will think that you're perfect. They just do. And the younger they are, they put you on a pedestal and they think there's nothing wrong with you. So there must be something wrong with them. So when you tell them and express to them that you also have bad days and sometimes things make you sad or angry or frustrated or embarrassed or whatever the case may be, you are connecting with them and you're showing them that you aren't perfect and that you also feel these feelings. And then you can just kind of talk and then just say to them, so it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to feel whatever you're feeling, whether it's sadness or anger or embarrassment. It's okay. I feel like that as well. And when you're ready to talk about it, let's talk about it. And, we can figure this thing out together and we can help you to understand and to maybe have a better day tomorrow. And that is how you approach it. Now, the same thing with teenagers. Teenagers are very emotional, extremely emotional, because what happens with teenagers, if you go and do let me just put a little side thing in here. So I've got a free emotional intelligence course on YouTube, and I'll put the link down below. And it explains all the ways that you feel emotions, what creates those emotions, what creates those feelings. So there's loads and loads of different ways. But I also talk about the brain and the brain development. So, for instance, the brain changes at certain ages, and the emotional brain for a teenager kicks in when they go into puberty. And then they stay in that emotional brain until 24, 25, 26 years old, when the rational brain only kicks in. So teenagers can't be rational. So when they are in puberty, they now have all these hormones and it's just emotions. They are running on emotions. They're not running, whereas children before that age run mostly on the survival brain, which is the reptilian brain. So A teenager you've got to be really delicate with because it's just emotions and it's hormones and it's difficult. It's really difficult. But the thing with teenagers is that if they can't trust you with talking to you about little things, they won't trust you and talk to you about big things. And sometimes what I mean is the little things is that when they're feeling tired, and you call them lazy, or when they're forgetful and you call them whatever. Some parents, I'm horrified to say, some parents will still call their children stupid or that they have no integrity. Just don't use negative words when it comes to your children, right? Because especially when they're teenagers, it really affects their self-esteem and their self-worth and their self-confidence. So try and be gentle with those words. Try not to label your child with anything. So with teenagers, if you might have said something silly like that in the past, they can go, well, my dad or my mom called me this, so therefore I'm not going to tell them that because they're going to think I'm stupid or I'm being silly or I'm being overdramatic or I'm being a drama queen or whatever. And if you have done that in the past, you're going to have to learn to build up trust with them so that they can talk to you about little things and big things because you want your children to trust you with the big things in life. So when they're really struggling, that they come to you and they don't go to their peers, because often what happens with teenagers, if they feel that they can't come to you and connect with you and relate to you at home, they're going to go somewhere else where they feel that they're understood. They're going to go somewhere else where they feel significant. And often what happens with children who don't feel significant at home and important at home, they go and join gangs, they mix with the wrong crowds, they start doing drugs, they all do all sorts of scary things. So I'm not saying to become your child's buddy, but I'm saying become your child's safe place. So setting boundaries, but also being that safe place where they can talk to you about everything and anything. So if you have to build it up from scratch, start with something small and do the same thing that I suggested now. If your child was a younger child, just say to them, are you okay? Do you want to talk? Can I help you with anything? And if they go, no, 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 they just storm off to their room, which is what they usually do. They shut down, they storm off to their room, go back in a little while, check in with them. Are you okay? If they let you in the room, just sit there on the bed with them or sit on a chair and say, I can see you having a really bad day. Do you want to talk about it? And if they don't want to talk about it, or try and encourage them a little bit more and say, you know what, you're safe with me. You don't have to be embarrassed. You're not going to be in trouble. I am going to love you regardless of what is going on in your life, but I'm here for you. You can talk to me. And then if you kind of sometimes we intuitively know what's going on with our child, once again, just give them an example of when you've had a bad day or talk about when you were a teenager. You can say things like, when I was a teenager, I didn't want to talk to my mom or dad because I used to be so worried they're going to stop loving me. I used to be so worried they were going to judge me or think that I'm wrong and sometimes I did do things wrong, but I was so scared if I told them they would stop loving me and I would be punished. And so give a whole story. And sometimes we need to kind of like embellish it a little bit if you don't have a story like that to tell. But the important thing is that you get them to connect and that they know that you had the same sort of struggles, that you didn't just pop out one day and that you were an adult, you had the same kind of struggles. So get that way to connect to them and keep doing that. Don't lecture them. Do not lecture them. Relate. Relate to them so that they can connect. And then they will start talking. And if they still don't want to talk, then you can say, well, you know what? You know where I am. And remember, I'm going to love you no matter what. You can speak to me about anything. And if you don't want to talk to me, go and speak to mom or, if they, because sometimes kids won't. They might go and speak to an older sibling. They might even go and speak to an aunt or an uncle. And if they do that, don't take that personally either, because that's just what children do. And you can keep building on that relationship until you get to a point where they can trust you with their innermost feelings and thoughts. Okay. Right. I think I have time for one more. And this one comes from Sally. And she says, I keep losing my patience and shouting at my kids. I feel awful afterwards. How do I stop? And this is a question that many parents secretly struggle with. I know it was one that I struggled with for the longest possible time. And it makes us feel really ashamed, doesn't it? I remember when I started my journey into emotional intelligence. And as I said, it was 2003 when I was introduced to emotional intelligence. And I had just gone into my training as an emotional intelligence trainer and coach. And I remember the one day being so annoyed with my son. And he looked at me and he said, Mommy, I know you're upset, but please can you not shout? And that really stopped me in my tracks. And I thought, I hated being shouted at as a child and as a teenager. It made me feel awful. And yeah, I am doing it. And I think this is exactly what happens is that shouting is something that is role model to us, or our own parents shouted at us, or our teachers shouted at us, or our grandparents, our carers, whoever, whoever raised us or whoever was part of our life growing up. And so we think, oh, well, that's the way you do it. It's the same thing with hidings and spanking. Um, I mean, I think back to the day when that was okay, right? How we ever thought it was okay to beat a child or, oh my goodness, it makes me shiver. I mean, I think about the way we were hit at school. How was that ever justified? I mean, anyway, that's another story that it took me years to get over that trauma of being beaten at school. But what I'm saying is that we thought it was okay. That's the eras before us that came. Some people still think it's okay, and it's never okay. It's the most damaging thing you can do to a child is to spank them or to give them a hiding. But it was okay then. So shouting is the same thing. So because it was done to us and to our parents and to our parents before then, it was role model down. So we kind of all just think that, oh, well, that's how you parent somebody, or that's how you get them to pay attention. And the first way to stop that, Sally, which you've done, is you become aware of it. So the minute we become aware of something, we know that it brings it into our consciousness, into our awareness, and we know, like, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. So there's a few ways that you can stop doing this. And I remember having a really cool conversation with my kids, and I said, listen, I don't want to shout at you guys. I know it's horrible, and I'm so sorry I've done that to you. I really am. But my son had brought it up. I said, if I do it again without me even knowing, or not even realizing it, or not stepping in to stop it, please tell me. Just like you did, tell me, because I want to break that habit, because it becomes a habit. It really does. So you can do that with your children. You can say to them, I'm so sorry. I wasn't happy with what you did. I felt really frustrated. I felt so out of control. I was having such a bad day. I was having a stress day or whatever. And shouting is not okay. And I want to stop that. Will you help me to stop that? Get them to help you. So make this like a team effort, because it's really helpful for us to be able to learn from our children. And so when they do, you might initially have this, oh, I'm the parent, you're the child, don't tell me what to do, but stop yourself. Now, there's an interesting technique when it comes to emotional intelligence that will break that instant reaction that we have, because it takes 6 seconds from our. So when something happens, like say, for instance, your child is talking back to you and you can immediately feel anger, but for that message to register with your logical brain, it first registers with your emotional brain. And once again, this is in my course that you can do for free, completely. I don't want anything from you for that course. You just do the course and you'll learn all about this stuff. But so the emotion, or what has happened, takes 6 seconds to get from the emotional brain to the logical brain, which is up here. So the information comes in, you immediately want to react. You don't wait for it to go up. So count to 10. Stop yourself. If you think your child is backchatting by them saying, please don't shout at me, or for any other reason that you might want to get angry, stop yourself, take a breath, count to 10 slowly, and then respond. So that's one thing. Another technique that you can do, which is really interesting, is that when you feel yourself getting angry like that and frustrated, and once again you want to shout, take a breath and look up. And take a few more breaths and you'll feel yourself calming down. So what you're doing here is you are bypassing the emotional brain. You're going straight to the logical brain. So you're allowing that message to go straight to the logical brain, and you're allowing your body to relax and just breathe so that you can think rationally, because we want the message to get to the rational, the logical brain, so you can respond rationally. Because when you're shouting, you are reacting on emotion. And sometimes that emotion is not even anything to do with your child, right? Because the amygdala, the emotional brain, houses all the memories, all the emotions, all the stuff from the past. So it reacts based on whatever is stored there in that little library. So it could be where you have a value of respect and you feel disrespected because your child has backchatted you or your child's not listening to you. So once again, you feel they are disrespecting you. I'm not being listened to. Nobody's listening to me. I mean, that's a chronic one for parents, right? They're not listening to me. So we get so upset, so emotional, and then we shout. And guess what? At the end of the day, you're the one that feels terrible. You're the one that feels drained because you are reacting that way. And the most important thing to learn, which I keep saying to parents, is that any way your child behaves, even if your logical brain or your emotional brain wants to interpret it as disrespectful or whatever, do not take it personally. Because the way we react is actually personal to what's going on in our inner world. It's not, it's got nothing to do with them. All your emotions that are behind your reactions, it's yours. It's your interpretation of what's going on. It's your perception of what's going on. So it's your emotions. They're not creating it. It's your reaction based on your own emotions, based on whatever the interpretation is behind what's going on with that action. Do you hear what I'm saying here? Because we have thoughts, feelings, values, beliefs, all of this stuff. That's all personal to you. So, say for instance, um, I was raised differently to the way my husband was raised. And say, for instance, my granddaughter back chats to me and I just look at it and I'm not taking it personally, but I then respond in a calm way. Whereas my husband would go, oh, that's being really disrespectful and that's not okay. And all the memories are going on, and when I did that with my mom, this is the way she reacted. And then he's going to react in the same way. And he's going to go, don't you speak to me like, do you hear what I'm saying? I'm just giving examples here, but that's what happens because the way we react is based on our past and our upbringing and our values and our thoughts and our beliefs. Your child's not creating that. You're doing that on your own based on all of that stuff. So if you have a minute to pause and to think and to take a breath or look up and bypass those emotions, you can respond differently. And I can tell you something else. What's really, really interesting, really interesting. I remember, and I'm going to give you lots of examples from my own experience, and I will give you examples from other people's experiences as well. But I'll never forget this. I was back in the day, I was teaching emotional intelligence at some schools around where they asked me to come and run classes. And I remember the first time I went to the school. Oh my goodness. The children were so unruly and they were shouting and they weren't paying any attention to me and they were mocking me and they were teasing me. And because I wasn't their regular teacher and I left there thinking, oh, I have failed. This was horrible. I don't want to go back because they're not listening. But you know what? The second time I went back, and when this was happening again, I thought, I'm not going to react. I'm just going to stand here. And they were all talking and babbling and carrying on and making a noise. And I just stood there and I owned my energy. I owned my confidence. I owned my presence because, when you are the authority, not in an ugly way, if you're the parent, you're the teacher, and you have that authority, it's something that you own. It's that energy. And I just stood there. And a couple of minutes later, everybody went completely quiet. They turned around and I went, hi, class, are you ready? And I taught them, and it was a wonderful lesson. So, what I'm trying to say here is that when we react badly and we all over the show, and our energy is all over the show, and we feel out of control because our children aren't listening, they sense that, right? Because emotions are completely contagious. You can walk into a room and feel somebody else's anger without them even saying anything. You just know they're in a bad mood. Emotions are energy, so it's contagious. We pick it up. So your children can sense when you're like all over the show and they're not listening, and now you're getting frustrated, and now you got to shout. And at the end of the day, what happens when you shout at them? They just feel bad. You feel bad. You feel terrible. You feel ashamed. You're like, oh my gosh, I wish I handled that in a better way. So you got 3 ways now that you can start changing this. And I don't want you to feel bad about this. As I said, this is a problem that most parents struggle with because it's been role modeled to us down the ages. So take a breath, count to 10, look up, take a breath, calm down, say something, just go quiet, own your presence. And a fourth way is to explain to your children that you want to change this and you want their help, and they're reminding you that if you shout. And also ask them just to be a little bit kind to you as well. You're going to be kinder to them, and they can be kind to you as well because you want to change it for their benefit as well as your own. Right. So that's all I have time for today. So I answer questions on this channel twice a week. If you've got a burning question, whether it's to do with your child's emotions, big or small, if it's got to do with their behavior and you can't understand it, or you want some sort of strategies, whatever it is, you can write in for absolutely free. I'm going to put the link down below. Send me an email. And please make sure that you mention your child's sex or gender, should I say. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. It's just that sometimes genders behave differently. But make sure that you add in an age because children behave differently based on their brain development and the way they're growing. So please just add in their age. And then also you don't have to put in your real name. If you want to put in a pseudonym, or is it a pseudonym? Or use a fake name or whatever the case may be, but make sure that you enter your proper email address because when I answer questions, I drop a little email and I'll say to people, I've answered your question. Here's the link to the video and you can watch it. Okay, then take care and happy, positive parenting. And please don't feel bad. Parenting is the hardest job in the world. So do take care and I will see you next time. Bye for now.